No. So all of you are able to see, right? So the screen is visible, no?
Yes, sir.
So last class, we were discussing lacings and battens columns itself, and we have closed. Okay, so I have explained you in batten columns. Of course, lacing you have done previously also. So some details has been given. So the most important thing is lacing is like a truss kind of a thing. Okay, so all these compression, tension, like that, how it goes. But when it comes to battens, say it is like a beam. So you have to consider bending moment, longitudinal shear, transverse shear, and all other details also. Okay, so these are the design steps. So for battens, say 10% you have to increase. For lacing 5%. Like that. You see, it goes away. Then the depth of the battens and other things. So these are all empirical. Based on experiments and some this one. So this has been derived. So we have effective depth of the batten. So the end battens will have more depth, whereas because they have to, the distortion and other things also they have to take care. Now the intermediate battens, say so 3 by 4 times d dash you have to take this one, and thickness also, there are some like 1 by 50 times, s dash plus 2g, like that. You see, there are some formulas are given in the code itself. Now coming to the load carrying by battens, say so they generally in lacing or batten, the main load is carried by the main members itself. So this the job of battens or lacings is to make them, hold them together. Okay, so that's why so we designed for this transverse shear force, which is 2.5% of the total axial force itself. But in battens, because you don't have any diagonal members and others, so you have to have design for this longitudinal shear, then bending movement, say so both the two things comes into extra for the batten design. And you have to check like shear stress, then the bending stress. So vf by root 3, so it should be less than this. So these design checks have to be done. So this problem also we have solved. But only thing I just wanted to mention here is when the battens, say when you design these bolts, so generally we have studied only lap and butt joint. But in battens you have to design these bolts for movement connections also, so that we have not yet discussed. So we'll come back to that after some point of time itself. So right now, if we are able to design the depth, the way, thickness and other things of the battens, and then the load coming on the battens, and if we can verify, say, so that is sufficient as far as now is concerned. The movement connections will come back after some point of a time. Okay. So now finally, you see, so once the last topic in our compression members is this column splices. Okay, so this so if you go to any airports, airports, you will see many steel structures in airports. You will be having to construct, you see, very tall columns. So because constructing a 10-meter 20-meter is not possible in the in the workshop also, and the transportation becomes a very big problem. So what people do is, they will have small sizes, and then these things will be joined actually, okay, by this type of splice plates. So this we have to design. What is the main? So now this I showed you last class also. So here splice plates. So this you will have, these are the main splice plates basically. Okay, so this sometimes they also call this as flange splice or bearing splice also. So this is a name, they give the bearing, the splice. Then we have the shear web splices also. The web also, of course, in this figure he has not yet put the web, this one, but you will have web splice also. This resists shear kind of a thing. Okay, or shear splice also, people call this one. Then we have a bearing plate also. So this bearing plate also is provided sometimes if the both the things in the top column and bottom column, say so they are of same size, bearing plates is not required, but you can provide also. So because it means uniform distribution, you see the load and other things also. Suppose if the columns are of two different sizes, say then you have to go for this bearing plate design also. Okay, so these are the details, and this is what how we call as a column splice. I also showed you this in the last class, how they do construct the tall columns. Okay, so like a crane will be there, if you want to construct a huge column, say so you will be having these pieces. Okay, so which you have to join them by the splices. So you can see how they join, and then how they construct a single way the tall the column itself, and then they do this splicing. And sometimes they do, nowadays people are doing welding, but bolting and others also one can use here itself. Like structures lab, if you come maybe to our lab next time, backside we have a fire exit. So we have to construct some 10-meter or something, a huge column. So it was brought in pieces, and then they have done nice welding. The whole column has been constructed. Okay, so this is how you see the picture, how the column flanges say. So how these two columns are joined by the splices. So this is our flange splice or the bearing splice. So the front view, so it looks like this. You can see these two, the splice plates. Then the side view say, so these are the bolts, how many bolts have to be done. Then we have a web splice. So this is done for a shear force kind of a thing. Okay. So now sometimes what happens is, if you go to multi-story buildings, say, so now, which columns will carry more load, like the bottom, the topmost columns or the bottom columns? See, in a multi-story building, you have a huge column, say, okay. So what happens? So which column will carry more load? You people have done, right, the dead load and others? No.
Bottom.
The top ones?
The bottom columns.
Bottom columns get more load. So more load means the cross-sectional area also should be high actually. Okay. Now if you go to the topmost columns, say the load carrying will be very less. So to have economy, say, so people what do is, as a designer, we try to decrease their sizes. Like here, this is a upper column, this is a bottom column, say. So the sizes have been decreased to consider, the economy and others. But the problem here is when you want to join them by a splice, say, because there will be difference in their things, so you may have to provide the extra packing plate kind of a thing to join them through a splice itself. So here what we do is, so we do this packing plate, and then because their sizes are different, say, so to have uniformity, the bearing plate is also provided here. It is a mandatory when you have columns of two different sizes. But if there is a same size, say, so it is up to us actually. Okay, bearing plate or without bearing plate also it is fine. But here, you have to provide a bearing plate also. Apart from that, you also have to provide, if there is any shear coming on the column, say, so then this web splices. So this also has to be provided. So now this is splice plate, so it looks like this. Because if you go to the sidewise, so no need to provide a splice plate, you see, like this actually. Okay, so because this portion will be waste, you followed, right? So what they do is, so the size of the splice plate will be, bottom one will be, you see, same as the lower column. The top one, say, so you will have a splice plate, something like this also. Okay, so this is how the splice plates has to be provided. And as already I told, sometimes instead of bolted connections, say, so one can do the welding connections also. Like you can have a weld instead of bolts, and then you have to put this plate, and then so this also is possible. Sometimes how they do it in the practice. And some problems, to give more strength, say, people we also put this stiffeners actually below this, the bearing plate. So like here, so right now there are no stiffeners, but that also can be included actually in the design itself. So this is how, so this is for equal cross section, say. So this is how you see the splice plates are provided. So bearing this one, then the shear splice here, then two different sizes, say. So then you have to provide extra packing plate also come into picture, and you have to provide this bearing plate also, and sometimes this stiffeners also. So this is how the design will look like for this column splices. So now if you see our code, say, so this is all more or less the empirical kind of a thing. There is not like much theory or something like that. It is very simple, the splice plate design. Okay, so now this is what they say. So when there is axial compressive load, okay, the splice plates are provided on the flanges of the two column sections to be spliced. So the code clearly says is the axial compressive load, whatever is coming on the column, say. So so this load will be taken by these splice plates. Okay, so these flange splice plates which you are going to provide, say. So you have to design them for the axial, the compressive load. Now suppose if the column has machined ends, say, okay, the splice is designed only to keep the columns in position and to carry the tension due to bending moment, due to which it may be subjected. Okay, and then the splice plate and connections, say, they should be designed to carry only 50% of the axial load and tension. So if it is machined ends only, so if it is machined ends, say, so then the 50% of the axial load only has to be carried and tension. Now suppose if it is not a machined end cell, okay, like machined end, so the column will be, you see, the load on the splice and connection, say, okay, PU by 4 for the machined ends. whereas a pu by 2 for non-machined ends itself. So machined or non-machined end means, so if you see this, this one say, so this place, okay, where you are joining these two members here. So if they come from the factory, say, so they would have done nice cutting actually, okay. So when you join them, there will be no issues. But when you try to cut these sections, or if you have done some additional welding, then if the things are not perfectly fine, say, okay, that these joints between these two, then we will be having some problem. So the code clearly says is, the splices have to carry more load if it is non-machined ends, whereas if the things are nicely machined or nicely done in the the factory or something, then the load carrying capacity can be decreased of this splice plates. Okay, so this is the most important thing. So machined means pu by 4, non-machined ends means pu by 2. That much load you have to take to design your splice plate. Then if there is on the column, say, additional, if there is a bending moment, see, right now we are having only compressive load, but if there is any bending, say, which also acts on the columns, because generally, when you are constructing in a multi-story building, or this one columns, they have to carry all kinds of loads, okay, bending moment, then the shear will be there, because it will be connected to a beam, say, so some eccentricities will come, so you have additional bending moment, shear force, all those things also comes into our columns. So if the column is subjected to bending moment also, say, apart from the compressive load or whatever, because of eccentricity or whatever, so what, and of course bending stress is same as axial stress only. So axial stress is simply tension, or the compression kind of a thing. So bending stress is also axial stress only, but only thing, there will be a sign change. Okay, so what the code says, you find out the load due to bending moment, say, you divide whatever bending moment is coming on the column divided by the lever arm, and lever arm is the cross sectional distance between the two splice plates. So that means this distance itself. So these are the two splice plates here and here. So this, you take the distance, you divide the bending moment by this lever arm, say, you will get load carried due to bending moment. So you have to add pu2 plus pu by 4 or pu by 2 for non-machined ends itself. So this is what we said. Okay, so pu by 4 plus mu by d. So this is the load carried by the splice plates. So bending stress is also axial stress, compressive stress, that is both are same. So you have to add these two, and then you have to do the design. Suppose if it is not machined, the non-machined ends, say, so then this becomes pu by 2 plus mu by d. So this is how the load has to be carried, okay, for the splice plates. Now shear splices, say, so this, whenever there is any shear force which is coming on the column, say, so these flange splices will not carry no shear. So these two carry only bending moment, the stress arising due to bending moment, and then stress arises due to the compressive loads. But if there is any shear, say, the shear should be carried by these shear splices which are on the web. Okay, so this is their job. So the web splices, say, so this you have to design, for the shear force. So now, so this is how the loads, so now the loads are clear. Like the flange splices will carry bending moment, plus the stresses arising from the bending moment, plus we have the axial compressive load. The web splices, say, they carry only the shear force. Okay, so these two are clear. Now the splice plates, say, they are assumed to act as the short column. This is what the code clearly mentions. Okay, so these plates will be using those zero, because they are also subjected to compressive kind of a thing. But the code clearly says that you have to take them as a short columns and zero slenderness ratio. That means short column means zero slenderness ratio. So these plates will be subjected to yield stress. Okay, this is the most important clause given in our IS code. Now for the splice plate, say, so the design of a splice plate means you have to find out its length. Okay, the length of the splice plate. So the design variables are the length has to be find out, then the width of the splice plate basically. Okay, and then the thickness of the splice plate. So width will be there, so the width of the splice plate, then depth of the splice plate. So these are the design variables. Now among these variables, which is fixed among D, W and the thickness, which is already fixed before design itself? See the figure and tell me.
W.
Which one? D or W or T? Which is already fixed?
W.
Now W, because what is W? How do you fix this W?
W is the width of the column.
No, so width of the column itself. So if you know the width of the column, so then W is already fixed actually beforehand. Now how do you fix a D? The depth of the splice plate, that is also given, or you have to do some calculations. No. So D depends on what? Now see, now how many bolts are there here? See, suppose if you see in one line, this one, how many bolts are there?
6.
6 bolts are there. So suppose now if it is 6 bolts are there, so you know, right? If I know the diameter of the bolt, if I know the diameter of the hole, then the end distance, edge distance, gauge, everything is there, say. So you can easily find out the depth also. You followed. So this depends on the how many bolts are there. It depends on the connection. Suppose if there are 10 bolts, say, so then the depth will be, different. Suppose if it is a 2 bolts, depth will be different. So the width is already fixed. No need to do any design calculation. Only you have the D is also more or less we can fix actually based on the number of bolts, how many number of bolts. So the only design variables which you have to find out is this that is the thickness of this splice plate. You followed. So 3 design variables, but finally everything boils down to thickness only. So that's what we say. So the cross sectional areas of the splice plate is calculated by dividing the appropriate portion, the load divided by the yield stress. So the width of the splice plate, okay, is usually kept equal to the width of the column flange itself. So the width is already decided itself. Now the thickness of the splice plate, say, because the cross sectional area you have found out from the P load by your yield stress. So this the cross sectional area. So now width is already known to you. You follow, right? So once width is known, say, so only thing is you have to find out the thickness of the plate. So simply you divide that by width, you will get the thickness. So T is, you see, A by W kind of a thing. So thickness is also known. Now the nominal diameter, so these things you have to assume, okay, and then the strength you have to find out how many number of bolts and other things you have to find out. So depending on the number of bolts, edge distance, gauge end distance, and others, so you can find out the depth of the plate itself. So it's a very simple, the design. Now if you want to provide a bearing plate, say, okay, so which is where you have to do if you are joining 2 columns of 2 different sizes basically, okay. So here, so the bearing plate, you see, so generally, of course, that figure he has taken more width and this one not required. The length and width, say, of the plate, okay. So like you see, no. See, like for example, here, say, so we are joining 2 columns. So this is a column 1 and this is a column 2. Okay, so we are joining them by this splice plate. So now you have to provide a bearing plate also. So the bearing plate also will have, the width, then depth, and then you see the thickness will be there. Okay, so now here that it is very easy because you see the length and width of the plates are kept equal to the size of the lower story column itself. Okay, and thickness only has to be computed from the ultimate movement due to the factored load. No, this they give the code. So the code says is like this. Okay, so now this is the load PU. Okay, so now the load carried by this is PU by 2, PU by 2. Okay, so now so this is a bearing plate, say. So now the load is coming like this, PU by 2, PU by 2. So the code clearly says is you find out the bending moment in the bearing plates, which comes from now you people are able to hear. Now voice is audible. You are able to hear now.
Yes, sir, we can hear now.
I think some internet you followed, right, from our side maybe. Okay. So now, so the bearing plate say, so the bearing plate has to be designed for, so the load PU by 2, whatever is coming, multiplied by this A dash here. So you have a bending moment actually. Okay. So now this, so you have this formula, that is a simple bending formula which you have studied in mechanics of materials. So for rectangular cross section, so you know the section modulus, okay, BT square by 6 itself multiplied by F. So this gives you mu, and from this expression, so you can find out, you see, the thickness of the bearing plate also. So bearing plate also, length and width are fixed. It should be same as the lower column, and then the thickness has to be found out. So to design this bearing plate, say, so you equate it pu by 2 into A dash, okay, this lever arm whatever is coming here, and then you find out you see the thickness from this expression. So this is how you see the bearing plate has to be designed. So this is what we say. So now if the joint is subjected to bending moment along with axial load, say, to just summarize, so the splice plate, so you have to decide, you both you follow, right, you have to add these two, and so the flange splices have to be designed for these two loads. So for shear forces, you have to provide a splice plate on the web. Okay, so this is separate splice you have to design. And here also there are some guidelines, like you see the splices also, the centroidal axis of the splice plates should coincide with the centroidal axis of the members, the jointed. So like sometimes, you should not provide, you see, this side some other splice plate, say, with 10 mm thickness. This side you provide some other splice plate, or the depth and depth of this side, depth of this side, if they are not same, say, then what happens? See here you provide, 1 2 3 6 bolts, and then the depth is like this. Let us say depth here is a 200 mm or 100 mm, say. Now this side if you provide 50 mm, say, this splice plate, this flange is different, that flange is different, say, what happens? Or here the thickness of the splice plates on this flange is different, this flange if it is different, say, what happens?
Unsymmetric and cause problems.
Unsymmetrical things will be there. So if there is unsymmetric, say, so automatically you follow a torsion and another complexity will come into picture. That is what you see the code clearly says actually. Okay. So that's what. So now I know the packing plates, if you are providing, say, then the design shear capacity has to be reduced. We already seen when we design lap and butt joints at that place, when the essential near the butt joints, if you are joining, you see we have a reduction factor for that also. Okay. So then more than 6 mm in thickness. So this is the code that clearly gives the guidelines. So now quickly you follow it. So let us see one problem here. Okay, which is again available in Duggal's textbook also. So here you can see. So we have a stanchion is nothing but a column only. So we have two columns. One is ISHB 300. Okay, so this is in the lower story of the building. So this is a building. Okay, now this has to be connected to another column which is 200 mm. So its depth is small. Okay, of the next upper story. So these are clearly mentioned. Now a load is axial compressive load is 600 kilonewtons has to be transferred from the top story stanchion. Now do you have to design, you see, the column splice itself, and the column ends are made flush kind of a thing, they say. That means they are not non-machined, the ends itself. Some problems they clearly mentions the ends are the flushed. So then the design load will be different for both these cases. So now you have to use bolted connection also. So these details has been provided to you. Okay, so now we have to decide the column splice here. Now here first of all you have to decide actually. So now here what other things you have to provide, how many splices, what are the three things you have to provide to join these two. Your design means what is that you have to provide. So you have to provide splices where. See what is the load coming on this column, what type of load is there? Any bending moment is there, or only what type of load is there?
Axial.
No, only axial load. Do you have any shear?
No, sir.
So now do you have, so now what do you have to design now? When you say the column, that junction you design, say, what is that you have to design? What is that you have to design now? So the
Only
web
the
splices web splices are required. See, this web splice is required for this problem.
No, sir.
Why? Because there is no
Shear force.
there is no shear force. If shear force, if it in the question, if they have given say, then you have to do. But anyway, in practical cases, because we don't know, right? So we provide shear splice also. But in our problems, say shear is not mentioned, web splice is not required. Now, what are the? So this is not required actually for the problem. Now you have to decide what other things you have to provide. The column is of two different sizes. Okay, one is a 200, other one is a 300. So you have to provide splices where. And now you have to provide where you have to put the splice. The flange splice is required or not? This one. Yeah, so flange splice is required or this is not. So now the load is axial load. Okay, so now that load will be carried by which one? The flange splices, right? So this side and this side. Then what is the problem you are having here? You have to provide what is that extra thing you have to provide when you want to join these two, because their thicknesses are that depths are different. Say one is a 300, other one is 200. Say what is the extra thing you have to do? Apart from the flange splice, you have to put another extra. What is that you have to do?
Bearing plate.
Bearing plate is one, so that is one thing. So bearing plate you have to provide. Then apart from that, so because they are of two different sizes, say, okay, so this is other column, this is other column, say, so you have to provide a bearing plate also. This also is perfectly fine. Now if you, when you want to join them by a splice plate, say, so now what's the problem you have? Because their thicknesses are different, what happens in this gap you have to provide?
Packing plates.
Packing plate also you have to provide something like this. You followed it. So this so you have to do all this. You followed right the design. So here it will be fine, but here it will be fine. So the problem has three things. One is a packing plate, bearing plate, the flange splice. If shear is given, say, then you have to do shear splice also. You have to provide you followed right near this web portion also. So that also have to be designed. Okay, so that is how you have to do. And now first you copy from the steel tables all the properties of ISHB 300, ISHB 200. So ISHB 300 say. So depth is 300 mm. So these are available in our steel tables. Then breadth of the flange. Okay, so this is 250 mm. So all these details are required. Then thickness of the flange, say 10.6 mm. Then thickness of the web, not required for this problem because we are not shear force is not there. So these are the details. Now similarly, say ISHB 250. So depth is 200 mm. So not 200. I'm sorry. No. So depth is 200. Then breadth of the flange, say. Okay, so D2, that is the second one. So this is 200 mm. Now, then thickness of the flange 2. So this is 9 mm and web also. But anyway, web you, as I already told you, because there is no load, so not required. 7.8 mm. Okay. Now the problem is so for the these are of two different sizes. So now you have to find out this packing plate, where how much is the width of this packing plates required has to be estimated actually. Now how do you estimate this width of the packing plate? So the packing plate width has to be found out actually. So now this is 300 mm. You followed. So this is a 300, whereas this is a 200. I will draw once again. So this is a top column. So this is the bottom one. So this is a 300. Okay. This is a 200. So now you have to provide a packing plate which will cover this portion. What is the width of this packing plate? On the top of it, you have a splice plate. So now this has to be decided. How much is this? How to find out? Or the thickness of this packing plate. Now, how much will be the thickness of the packing plate? So you have to make it 300. Okay. The top one is 200, but you have to make it 300. Say, what is that? How much you have to do?
50 mm.
50 mm. So it is straightforward. So 300 minus 200 by 2, because you are providing 2 packing plates. So this turns out to be say 50 mm. So this is a straightforward thing itself. Okay, the packing plate. Now we have to do a bearing plate design also, and of course you have to do that also. First, let us decide bearing plate, because bearing plate is the very easy thing. Now, what is the length and width of the bearing plate? Length of the bearing plate, then width of the bearing plate. So now what does the code specifies? Very easy. Where is the bearing plate? So bearing plate has to be decided. So the code, what is it clearly says? Read this line. The length and width of the plate are kept equal to the size of the lower story, the column. And the thickness is computed by, of course, from the bending moment. So what is the length and width of the bearing plate? They have to be same as the so they have to be same as the size of the lower story column. So now in these problems, our lower story column is ISHB 300. Okay. So now what will be the length and width of this bearing plate? So these are the details I have provided you. Depth, breadth of the flange I have provided. So this is an I section. Okay. So this is an I section which you are having. So depth is 300. Then breadth of the flange is 250. So now what is the dimensions of the bearing plate? So what is the length and width? 300 and 250. Straightforward. Because you have to take the same as a lower column, but upper column things you can't take actually. Okay, otherwise you cannot join also. The upper column will be 200 by 200 kind. So this is not, you should not take this on the lower story, we have to take. So length and width are already the fixed actually for the bearing plate. So which is same as D1, and this is same as the breadth of the flange actual. Now the factored load say. Okay. So the load, so which is you followed, right? So here in this problem, I think only load has been mentioned. So there is no factored load has not been mentioned. So we try 1.5 into 600. So this turns out to be 900 kilonewtons. Okay. Now load on the flange. So because now what is the load on the splices on each flange? So this turns out to be 900 into 10 cube by 2. So this turns out to be 450 into 10 cube newtons. So now these are our non-machined ends. So for non-machined ends, the load will be PU by 2. Suppose if it is a machined end, say, then the load will be PU by 4. So that also clearly the code specifies. So machined end means PU by 4. Non-machined end means the PU by 2 itself. Okay, so this is the most important thing itself. So now this is the load which is coming on the bearing, this splices and others. So now to decide the thickness of the bearing plates, so the code clearly says is the bending moment actually, which arises from this PU by 2 into A dash. Okay, so this you have to compute, and then so you equate it to simple bending formula, that is F times section modulus. So section modulus for a rectangular section, anyway we have already some BDQ by 6 or something. So here it becomes BT square by 6. So from this equation, say, compute the thickness of the bearing plate. Okay, so it is a straightforward. So now but you have to find out that A dash. So this has to be estimated. That is the A dash. So the A dash has to be estimated. So which is the distance between these two. Okay, so that you can find out from these numbers: 300 ISHB, 200, the center of gravity or whatever. So distance, so you have to find out. So distance between the center of gravity, say CG, of column flanges of ISHB 300. Okay, so the top one if you take, so 300 minus 10.6, so this turns out to be 289.4 mm. That is the 10.6 is nothing but thickness of the flange. Okay, so that is how we compute the CG distance between the column flanges. Now similarly the same thing, distance between the CG of the bottom, same ISHB 200. So this also you can find out. So 200 minus the thickness of the flange, here it is 9, so 191 mm. Okay, so now you have to find out the A dash actually. So A dash will be simply 1 by 2. So because you are having on both the sides, so 289.4 minus 191 mm. So this turns out to be 49.2 mm. So this is my A dash actually. Okay, so now we have to find out the movement. So this simply, 1 by whatever that 450 into 10 cube. So this is the load multiplied by 49.2 mm. So this is my bending moment actually, 22140 into 10 cube. Okay. Now this has to be equated to 1 by 6, bt square. So 250. Breadth of the flange is 250. So, so this we take here. So this already is known, 250 into t square. Multiplied by that formula. 250 is the yield stress of the steel. Then we have this factor of safety, that is 1 point partial factor of safety. So solve this equation. Say I will get my thickness of my, you see, the bearing plate as, you see, 48.35, and you close it, say 50 mm. So this is the thickness of my bearing plate. Okay, so the bearing plate has, the length is 300, width is 250, then thickness is 50 mm. So this is how we provide the bearing plate design. Now once the bearing plate is decided, say now we have to go for the splice plate. Now, and as already I told you, the splice plate is, this is non-machined end. Okay, so the load carried by the splice plate is half pu by 2. Okay, already we have said. Suppose if it is machined end, say what is the load carried by splice plate? What is the change you have to do in this calculation?
Instead of 1 by 2,
1 by 4, that's all. Okay, now the cross sectional area has to be found. Now here for splice plates, which is fixed. For the splice plate, which is fixed, depth, width, thickness, which is already fixed.
width.
Width is fixed. Now what is the width of the splice plate in this problem? Now splice plates are provided on the flanges. Okay, so this side you provide. So what is the flange width, breadth of the flange for the lower column?
250 mm.
250. So already you followed it. We have already decided. So the cross sectional area. So this becomes of the splice plate, say. So this is 225 is the load into 10 cube divided by 250. That is the width of the splice plate, which is same as the breadth of the lower flange. So this turns out to be 900 the mm square kind of a thing. So now the flange width. Okay, so now when flange width of the top column is 200. Okay, so the flange width you see of top column. So this is a 200 mm and the bottom is 250. Okay, so the bottom column is 250. So the minimum width is, so the width of the splice plate. So as already I told you, so when you are having this type of things, our splice plate also will be something you see like this. Where is that figure? So this you can see. So the splice plates generally when you have like this. So when we have two different columns, say, so the splice plate, as already I told you, so it will be like this. So we don't go for rectangle because this portion will be waste kind of a thing. So what we do is the breadth of the splice plate is not like perfect rectangle kind of. So bottom one is 250, the top one is 200. Okay, this is the most important. So the minimum width, say, of the splice plate. Okay, so this is 200 mm. Okay, now the other width is 250, that is the bottom width. But to calculate the thickness of the splice plate, say, so we use the minimum width actually. Okay, so the thickness becomes 900 is the cross sectional area. So here we use the minimum width of the splice plate. Maximum is 250, minimum is this one. So we use the lowest one because to be on the safe side. So this turns out to be 4.5 mm or something. But generally the thumb rules in practice, this splice plates minimum thickness is the taken is 6 mm actually. Okay, so this is how we do. So the minimum thing should be provided is, you know, more or less 6 mm, 4 mm, 5 mm, say that type of splice plates are not provided. So now the splice plate, you see, so our to calculate thickness, we have used minimum width. So the splice plates had two widths actually. The top one is, you know, the bottom one is a 250, the top one is minimum. To calculate thickness, we use the minimum width of the splice plate. So now our splice plate will be, you see, 250 by 6 at the bottom. And you know, you have to cut it and then you followed, right? So, you know, 200 by 6 kind, but in design, you know, we give like, you know, 250 by 6 splice plate, you see, you know, this is a design value. So now once that is done, so now we have to decide the connections have to be designed. Okay, so this is the next thing is, you know, the connections. So like you see, I have so this is my splice plate, you can see. So this is you know, 250 and this is you see 200, you know, whatever is the top flange. Okay, so now these are the splice plates. So now we have to design the connections, like how many bolts required and others. So let us say in this problem we take 24 mm diameter bolts, say 4.6 grid, and I hope all of you know that is a net area. All other things you followed it, we have already calculated, but only thing is you have a packing plate here. So the packing plate thickness is, you know, this is 50 mm. So all of you know how to calculate this one. And upper story column, say the flange is, you know, 9 mm. And the splice plate thickness is, you know, 6 mm. So now I hope all of you know the reduction factor has to be found out, pkg. So this 1 minus 0.0125 into 50, the thickness of the splice plate, all of you know these details. 0.3, and grip length also has to be found out. Now, see what's the problem here. Now, see for the top flange, say, see what is happening here. The grip length basically is increasing actually. Okay, so when the grip length increases also, you know, in bolted connections, we have told you have to once again you have to check whether you have to do the reduction or not. Okay, so for this, you know, so the grip length, say, so LG, so this becomes a 6 plus a 50 plus 9 for the top thing you have to check 65 mm. So the criteria is it should be less than 5 times the diameter of the bolt. So diameter if it is 24, say, so this turns out to be 120 mm. So no need to do any reduction kind of a thing you have to do. Now the shear strength of the bolt you can find out. Okay, strength of the bolt in bearing, then strength of the bolt in shear. You know, you can find out here. So for this problem, say the strength of the bolt, you know, bearing turns out to be, you see, strength of the bolt you can find out. Okay, in bearing, in you can do all those calculations. So this turns out to be 118.08, you know, kilonewtons kind of a thing. Now lower story column we have to check, upper story also we have to check. Now, so you can find out the strength of the bolt in shear basically. So now here the problem is, you know, when you try to find out the strength of the bolt in the shear, say, okay, so you have to find out all these details which you have already done. So the shear strength of the bolt. So these are all straightforward. Okay, in shear. So this turns out to be, you see, 65.21 kilonewtons. So the strength of the bolt, so bearing is 180, this is shear is 65.21. So which one governs, which you have to take in design among these two?
65.21.
Shear has to be taken. So the number of bolts will be, you see, 225 by 65.21. 225 is the load. So this turns out to be 3.45 approximately. You see, 4 bolts are required. Now when it comes to upper story, say, now the shear strength will be further reduced actually, because you have the packing plate A and B, you have FUB by √3 times gamma MB and multiplied by beta pkg. So the strength gets reduced. So this turns out to be 24.45 kilonewtons. And the number of bolts required, say, this will be obviously, you know, will be more. 225 by 24.45. So this turns out to be 9.2. Approximately, you see, the 10 bolts are required here. So this is how, you know, you have to find out. So now, you know, we can find out, you see, so these are the number of bolts. So the topmost you have 10, the bottom one you have 4 bolts are required. So, you know, now we have to find out the depth of the splice plate. So this is the last one because it depends on the connection details. So you know how to calculate pitch length and other things, gauge and other things. So based on that, say 4 into 40 plus 50, say. So this is the top story, then bottom, then you have this one. So finally this turns out to be, you see, 535, you see, mm. So the splice plate, whatever you know we have said here, so the splice plate will have, you see, 535, so which comes from the connection into 250 into 6 actually, but now this 250 will be at the bottom, at the top it will be 200 mm itself. So this is how, you see, we have to work out the connections here. So bottom story, how many bolts are required? Nah, see the bottom story, like lower story, how many bolts were required? Now lower story, how many bolts are there?
4.
4, then 10. So now you can see this figure. So bottom you have followed, right? The 4 bolts are required here. Now 10 bolts are required. Okay, so we provide 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in 2 rows, say. So you know, so these are the 10 bolts which we provide here. And now the same, if you see from the front view, you know, so it looks you see like this actually. Okay, so these are our connections, and I hope all of you know how to calculate 40, 65, the gauge distance, you know, pitch, gauge and other things, you know. So these is how we do. Now of course this problem, he has provided a splice plate. Okay, not required because there is no shear force which comes on the splice plate, but in practice you followed it, although shear may not be there, you know, sometimes we don't know, you know, the shear may also come. So generally, you know, to be on the safe side, say people provide this shear splices also, but the problem, you know, design, we don't design this problem for this shear splices itself. Okay, so this is how, you know, you have to calculate you know, for this type of problems, the column splices. So with this, you know, we have almost closed our compression members itself. So before we go to the next one, so this is, you see, the checklist. Okay, so now try to answer. What is column and beam column? What's the difference between a column and a beam column? Now, all of you are there. What is the difference between column and beam column?
Column has only axial force, but beam column may also have shear force.
Very good. Okay, but there is a proportional. The majority is a compression. Beam column also we take it as a column itself. Okay. And now, what are the important design variables for compression members? Now, what is that you are interested? You see in the cross sectional, this one. So for tension members, our only variable was P by A. So area was very important. But for compression, what other things you have to look for? Slenderness ratio, radius of gyration, moment of inertia, all those things becomes important. So from the steel tables, not only area, but moment of inertia, radius of gyration, all these things you followed, it comes into picture. Of course, the slenderness ratio itself. Okay. And now what is squash load? Long back in the compression starting, I told you what is squash load.
The column is very short, then it will fail by crushing and not buckling.
No, that is good. What is that number? What is the formula or what is that expression? A times? Now, if area is the area of the cross section, A into?
A into Fi.
A into Fi. Very good. Okay, so this is my squash law. Excellent. What is effective length of the column? Length and effective length are same?
KL by R.
So KL by R, but effective length, if somebody asks you, it depends on what? See, effective length depends on what? You know?
Depends on the conditions.
Boundary conditions. Excellent. Now, what is the theoretical effective length for fixed column?
12.
Half 0.5. Excellent. But IS code, what it gives?
0.6 IL.
Why? See, why codal things are not taking same as from the theory?
Column is not perfectly fixed.
So you don't get any boundary condition, fixed, not possible, or even hinge also you don't have a perfect kind of a thing. So to account for that, you see, there is some small, we increase, you follow, right, the slenderness ratio. Now, what is the maximum allowable slenderness ratio for compression members? You remember one table I used to show long back. You remember that or you don't remember? This is a very important thing. What is the maximum allowable slenderness ratio? You remember that table? What is that? For tension members you followed, right? So what is the maximum thing? Can you see here?
180.
180 you followed it, so this you should remember. Okay, so 180, so we have already discussed all these things. So 180, so this is very important. And now what formula IS code uses to estimate buckling curves? Our IS code is based on which formula? I showed you, right, Rankin's formula, Euler's buckling load, all those things we have done. Okay, so what is the one which is used in the IS code currently, that buckling curves comes from which formula? We have done the derivation also, right? I showed you also.
Perry-Robertson.
Perry-Robertson formula. Excellent. Okay, please remember. Now, what are the assumptions? Like Perry-Robertson formula is, what are the main assumption there? We have eccentricity. Euler's buckling load is not ruled out because that's a more theory kind of a thing, but imperfections will be there, eccentricity, Krugod column, all those things are there. So the formula is derived on what assumption? So column, on the column you have any eccentricity, or what is that it takes? See that Perry-Robertson formula we derived, what is that we assumed, you remember? So that entire derivation, whatever we have done, say, okay. So what is the starting point for the derivation?
Maximum stress is equal to the yield stress.
No, that is fine. But for deriving the Perry-Robertson formula, we made one very, the important, assumption or the starting point. What is that we are saying? The column, the initial column is perfectly straight. The derivation, the whole derivation, whatever we did say, we are assuming that the column is already.
There's an initial imperfection.
Initial imperfection, excellent. Okay, so this you have to remember. So based on the initial imperfection, the formula has been derived actually. Okay, no eccentricity something, but of course code says eccentricity is also that one only. So that is the most important assumption. Initial eccentricity or the Krugod column. Already the column is bent. Okay, and now how many buckling curves are there in the IS code?
4.
A, B, C, D. Okay. And now what is the non-dimensional effective slenderness ratio? Our code, IS code, gives non-dimensional slenderness ratio KL by 4, I know. Okay, but what is non-dimensional? So you remember what is a non-dimensional? Tell me if any of you remember. Code, what does it give, say? If you see the IS code, you will automatically follow it, right? You will get those things. So you can see here, non-dimensional effective slenderness ratio. What is non-dimensional effective slenderness ratio? What is this? Square root of? You followed. So we have two slenderness, one with Euler's buckling load, one is our this one. So square root of Fy by Fcc. So this is it is a no dimensions. Okay, that is what we call, as you see, the non-dimensional slenderness ratio. Okay, it is given in the code. So please see that thing also. Okay. So now what is stress reduction factor? Given in the IS code, what does the stress reduction factor, that eta? It is nothing but
N by NR.
Oh God. You are able to hear now?
Yes, sir. Now we can hear.
Some, I think internet here is not. Now you see, what is stress reduction factor? So because of the slenderness ratio or this eccentricity, so what we do is we try to reduce the load actual. Okay, so that is what the stress reduction factor is. Now what is ABCD buckling curves? So we have 4 buckling, right? Why we have 4? What does this ABCD indicates? What is you mean by class D? What do you mean by class A, class B? So you remember, right? Class A, B, C, D we have. What is A, B, C, D? What do they indicate? What is the difference between A, B, C, D? What is that classification? See, people have forgotten. Now, what is a class A, class B? Can you read here? What is that? It indicates class D means what is the thing?
Perfect columns.
Curve A, so curve D say it means maximum imperfections. So lot of imperfections, medium imperfections, perfect shape. So this is what the curves indicate. Okay, so please remember these things, they're very important. Okay, so tomorrow, when you go for any interviews or something, so these questions will be asked. Now, how to estimate stress reduction and design compressive stress from the code? So our IS code gives 2 things. One, you have a design charts. Other thing is you can use the formula, that Perry-Robertson formula. Both are same only. So this way or that way you can use. And now what is the philosophy behind built-up column?
So it's difficult to manufacture columns that are very long. So you manufacture small columns and put them together.
No, that is splice. I am asking built-up column, lacing and battens. See, built-up column, the idea is
To achieve symmetry.
Symmetry and to increase the moment of inertia such that it load carrying this one, that is the one. Okay, what is the slenderness ratio of laced column and battened columns? Laced column, what is the slenderness?
1.25 times.
1.25, 1.05. Okay, for laced column. Batten it is
1.1.
1.1. Now why slenderness ratio is increased for built up columns by 5% and 10%? Where do we increase slenderness ratio? Why? Because shear deformation is there. You remember? So anyway, I think time is almost close. So I will close this. Maybe next class once again we'll come back to these questions. Okay, and you also please go through the slides and come they're prepared. Okay. So stop.